Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to take a look at the Redcat Kaiju. This will be a continuation of my 100 Days series. I have one so far of the Armor Granite Voltage. This is the second truck I'll be doing. Essentially, it's a deep dive in what the long-term ownership of a truck might look like for someone who's the average hobby enthusiast. Today we're going to take a look at what my ownership of the Redcat Kaiju has been like. I'm going to run down anything that's broken, my thoughts on the components. I have a list of 10 categories that we're going to give a numerical value to. The scores for each category are 1 through 3, meaning each truck has the opportunity to get a total of 30 points. Like I said, so far we have the Armor Granite Voltage, and this is the Kaiju. So without too much chit-chat, we're going to just break right into it. The first thing we're going to look at is anything that broke on the truck. I like to start these off by mentioning any pieces that broke on their own and any replacement costs and anything like that, and then we'll go into parts upgraded. So as far as broken parts on this truck, nothing broke while bashing. With a caveat to that, I did have 2 broken components. The first thing that broke on this truck was the factory servo horn. It was actually stripped right out of the box. The factory horn has plastic splines in them, and there's a Hexfly 25 kilogram servo in here, which is pretty powerful, and it seems to have stripped the servo horn sometime between their testing at the factory and when I got it. And when I say it was stripped out of the box, I mean I put a battery in it, put it on the floor, went to turn the steering on the transmitter, and nothing happened with the wheels. If you turn it over on its back, so the wheels are up and you turn it, they'll move. If you put them back on its wheels, the servo spins but the wheels don't move, which is a sure indication that the servo horn is stripped. So that was the first thing that broke on it. And the second thing was dealing with some of the steering problems I had with this truck that were caused by the servo horn and then my naivety in how to fix it. I started to look over all the steering components, and I accidentally broke or cracked the bell crank very slightly by over tightening the screw in the bottom of the bell crank tube. As far as parts broken, despite there being some very notorious parts on this, those are the only 2 things that are broken. The servo horn out of the box, and then a very tiny crack in the bell crank. That's it. Now, as far as upgrades, I've upgraded the servo horn. This has the... sometimes I run the Redcat unit. Right now, it's a TRX4 version off of Amazon. Mostly I run this one because the arm is a little bit smaller, and the debris seems to fall out from this little hole a little easier. But other than that, there's almost no real difference between the Redcat unit and any one of those other TRX4 type models, or you know, I don't know if those have a specific style or a name, but you know, the ones that are like this one on the bottom. So the servo horn's upgraded. The servo saver nut is upgraded. I don't know if you can see that. Oh yeah, you can. So that's upgraded. So servo horn, the servo saver nut is aluminum. The truck has front and rear sway bars. I swapped out the shock caps. I do have the front and rear upper arms, the aluminum, the 70, let's see if I can find them. Here they are. The 70-75 aluminum upper arms. As you can see, they're in the package. I haven't installed them. but I do have those. There's a steel spur gear and a +2 pinion. The factory is 9 tooth, and there's an 11 tooth pinion in here. I also have a cooling fan on here, and other than that, everything else is factory. No change to the ESC. There's been no change to the motor. Um, I think that's about it. Anyway, if we're looking at the total cost to this, this is something I didn't do on the voltage, which I should have done, but I did make it available. I keep a spreadsheet and a Google document of all of these things, so that someone can refer back to if they need to. Anyway, the total cost, including the truck, is $552, meaning the truck was $399, and I have $152 worth of parts and maintenance things that I purchased specifically for this truck. So keep that in mind. That doesn't include batteries. So that was, $552, assuming you have batteries. So the first category is price. The way pricing works is basically anything from $0 to $1,000 or $999. So 0 to 333 is a score of 3. 334 to 666 is a score of 2, and 667 up is a score of 1. Meaning, 1 is very expensive truck. So obviously this is a $400 truck, so score is 2. I have been tracking, knowing that I was going to make this video, I have been tracking the price for a few months, and I haven't seen the Kaiju ever go on sale. However, on Amazon just a few days ago, I saw the price on this dip down to $365. It was only for, I think, a couple of days, and then it jumped back up to $399. But if you keep your eye on it and you're interested in this, you can set yourself one of those Amazon crawlers or Google crawlers that will alert you when the price drops for something like this. Like I said, I've never really seen it on sale. Definitely not at Redcat, and I think it was just an Amazon only thing. So if you're interested in the truck and you can wait a little bit, keep your eye on Amazon, set an alert, and pick it up when it goes on sale. $365 is a really good deal on this. The next category is value. When you're comparing the competition at this price point, the Kaiju offers some pretty good features that you don't really see on many other models. Things like, the dust cover that comes with it. The front and rear lights seem to be unique in this kind of mid-range category. I know a lot of folks look at Redcat as the value brand, at least compared directly to Traxxas and Arma, or any of the other mainstream manufacturers. But it's one of the things that they have going for them. And I'll use myself as an example. When I was shopping for the truck prior to purchasing the Kaiju, the main vehicle I was looking at was the 4S Outcast or Creighton or something along those lines. And when you're comparing these two in the price range, and maybe even a little bit the Haas, despite the Haas being way out of the price range, you can really start to see why the Kaiju becomes a worthy opponent. For me, the center diff, the plush shocks, fully adjustable suspension, all of that stuff really kind of seal the deal, especially compared to something like the Outcast with those kind of cheapy shocks, even though they are okay. That's not even to mention the Hobbywing electronics package in here. You know, a lot of people like the Arma 4S line, and I do too. They're just not as powerful as this Hobby Wing kit. We're talking like a 4268 motor and 150 amp ESC compared to a 3268 and 120 amp ESC. Like, you know, this truck runs 6S. You know, if you're looking at $400 for a truck and you're looking for capability and speed and things like that for value, I think the Kaiju is in a really sweet spot and probably a class on its own. So in the value section, I gave the Redcat Kaiju a score of 3. The next category is components. I want to start by saying I really want to give the Kaiju a 3. However, there's a few components and design and part choices that need to be addressed due to the high failure rate in the field and the critical nature of these parts. So I kind of feel like I need to dock a point there just because of the widespread failure rates and the perception that there are some engineering weaknesses in the truck. I think the biggest glaring issue with every Kaiju, regardless of when you bought it and how hard you bash it and whatnot, is the servo horn. Like I said, mine was damaged from the factory, and the servo that they ship it with is powerful enough to strip the servo horn. So that's the very first thing. This should not have a plastic servo horn. Not just beyond the price point, but also for the level of the components that are built around it and the servo that's in there. I mean, this should really ship with an aluminum horn. And the fact that they even make one that's different than the other aluminum horns kind of show that they already knew that. And for some reason, they're skimping out on what would be a fantastic truck for a few pennies. I mean, they can't cost Redcat all that much to put an aluminum horn on every Kaiju. I suggest you pick up Redcat's option part the same time you buy the truck, because it's not really a question of if, but when will it fail. You don't want to pick up a beautiful new beast and have it down for a week while you wait for a servo horn. And for the folks that did pick up the truck and didn't buy the Redcat servo horn, I'll put a link below for the other one that I have in here, which is a TRX4 servo horn from Amazon. It's definitely going to arrive faster than Redcat's part. The second major issue is really only an issue on early release versions of the Kaiju, and the problem is the front and rear upper arms. These were a constant source of strife for early Kaiju adopters, as not only did they break easy, but they were also in limited supply. The arms were known to break where the turnbuckle ends in the plastic Y part of the arm, like right here. So what happens is the turnbuckle is recessed into the arm, into this plastic part, and where the turnbuckle ends, it tends to snap right there. Thankfully, there's a secret V2 Kaiju in production, and most likely, if you're watching this, you haven't purchased one yet, and you'll get the quote-unquote upgraded model. The new part has significantly more material in the stem part of the Y, so like right here, there's more material. It's a little thicker, and this part is shortened. There's also a aluminum upgrade for it, like those arms I showed earlier. These arms, but I don't necessarily recommend it. They're pretty expensive, and the wait time on them is pretty long. I also believe they'll adversely affect other parts in the steering geometry, namely the dog bones, and I'd rather replace an $8 set of upper arms than a $35 dog bone and CV combo. My concern with the aluminum part here is that if these don't bend and break, something here, inside here, will have to bend and break for the force that hits the wheel is going to go somewhere. And, like I just said, I would rather break this part and replace that than the dog bone. I haven't heard of anyone breaking these parts commonly. So it's either going to be this, the lower arm, or the dog bone. And I'd rather break this part. Um, the next issue is more of a gripe, but in my opinion, still needs to be addressed. The Kaiju ships with Dean's connectors. And I know this is a little nitpicky, but given the power on the ESC and the fact that most people are tossing in XT90s or EC or IC5s in the 4S power plants, it seems like a bit of a cup corner that just didn't really need to be. Similar with the servo horn. In my opinion, these need to ship with an EC5, IC5, or XT90. Well, not an IC5, but an EC5 or an XT90. I'd also be remiss if I didn't bring up the plastic spur gear. I haven't had a problem with mine, but I did upgrade to the steel option part. However, I should mention that I did so because I was removing the center diff anyway to install a sleeve on the outdrive cup. So I figured I'd swap that out too at the same time. My plastic spur gear was in great shape, and I ran about 15 4S packs through it. And while we're talking about the outdrives, we should probably talk about the folks that have had issues with shearing their outdrives at the slot for the dog bone. A few folks have kind of built their own homegrown fix, but most people opt for the Extreme RC Precision sleeves. However, there's mixed results on the sleeves. I have them, and I was only able to get 2 of the 5 to fit correctly. And after emailing them a bunch of times and leaving messages on Twitter, Facebook, and stuff like that, I've actually never heard back from them. Let me see. I think there's one. Yeah, there's one visible here in the front. It's going to be difficult to see, but it's on this side. I had to basically grind the pin of the dog bone down to be able to fit in there. I think what may have happened is there might have been a change sometime while they were redesigning this. Maybe they changed the geometry or the dimensions of the dog bone in here, or the tolerances for how long the pins that go through the dog bone are. A lot of folks who've purchased those cups recently have had the same problems installing them as I have. And I was able to check with someone who'd worked with the guy that makes them to double check and affirm the installation process. And, it's installed correctly. Just between the manufacturing tolerances on the cups themselves and the potential change to the dog bone pins, they just don't seem to work. You can try them and see if you get lucky, but I didn't get lucky. I also thought it was a little weird to take a Dremel and have to grind the tips of the dog bone pins down. All right, that's enough cons. So let's talk about some of the great components. The thing that really got me out of the box was the shocks. These shocks are fantastic. It's large bore, oil filled, adjustable. They're really excellent shocks. If there's a way to use these on any other models I have, I'm definitely going to try to. I'm really a big fan of these shocks. The next thing I want to talk about are the tires and the wheels. I really like these. In fact, they're part of the reason I purchased the truck along with the body. And I think the kind of Badlandsy look tires look as mean as they sound, and the logo and the dish of the wheels is super cool. I'm not sure if I've seen that on any other car besides the Volcano. The logo in the dish is one of the attributing reasons I purchased the truck. One of the main factors the Kaiju is such a contender here is the fact that this combo is capable of 6S due to the 150 amp ESC. Lots of folks think the Kaiju drew a lot of inspiration from the rival MT10 or the Helion Avenge, but those trucks are 3S. And the main competitors in the price bracket for this are mostly 4S. Given the 6S option with the Kaiju, it's a pretty big feature. And outside of some of the Banggood deals, I'm not really aware of another 6S package that's sub $400. Also, like most Hobbywing, these electronics are waterproof. The transmitter and receiver are pretty good. Despite the plastic wheel, I actually really like Redcat's choice to use that FlySky GT2E. Of all the RTR electronics and transmitter receivers I have, this is one of the radio systems I like the most. So for the components section, I rate the Redcat Kaiju a 2. The next category is aftermarket. There's not many companies making one-off parts for the Kaiju, but Redcat has an aluminum option part for nearly every critical part. The downside, in my experience, is the stock levels. Most of the aluminum option parts seem to sell out quickly and have fairly long manufacturing time, leading to long times between back order and delivery status. For example, I put these on order somewhere in November before Thanksgiving, and I didn't get these until mid-March. The plastic replacement parts seem to be on par with Traxxas or Arma. You can usually get those pretty quickly, but if you're looking for aluminum upgrades or hop-ups, those parts can be pretty far in between. In terms of non-Redcat brand upgrades, I wasn't really able to find too much. As far as I know, there's no RPM arms, no M2C chassis, which is kind of strange because they do have a landslide chassis. But I didn't find anything for the Kaiju. I kind of give it a pass because it's mostly still a new truck. But it's been nearly a year, so maybe the truth is the truck is a little tank and doesn't need a lot of aftermarket attention to make up for the factory parts. Or maybe companies think there's no market interest. But either way, there really isn't a whole lot of aftermarket parts for it. In terms of Redcat Kaiju aftermarket, I give the score a 2. The next category is technical support and warranty. First, we'll establish the terms of the warranty, which is 90 days. That's kind of better than Traxxas's 30 days for electronics. But something like Arma, I believe, is like 2 years. So a little better than Traxxas's electronics, but nowhere near Arma's 2-year warranty. But really, let's get to the part that matters. I've been in contact with Redcat's support team several times within the first few weeks of owning the truck, specifically for the servo horn issues. The team responded in a decent enough time, and they were actively trying to help. However, I was never, even to this day, able to get a resolution for their team. In fact, their dealer locator system was down during the entire time I was seeking assistance, so they couldn't even tell me a name of an affiliate in my market or in my area that might be able to take a look. And I read somewhere that very rarely, in only extreme cases, do they even accept a vehicle back for repair. I've had probably 40 emails back and forth with their support department, and I've yet to really get a resolution on any of my questions or inquiries. They were able to give me some maintenance figures for shock and diff weights, and provided me some links to some exploded diagrams and some comprehensive parts lists, which is definitely a plus. But in terms of support for actual issues I was having, I didn't really get any. So as nice as they were, there was no resolution, so I'm giving their technical support and warranty a 1. The next category is design and durability. For the first 3 months I've owned this, not a single part broke while I was bashing. Despite the issues we talked about earlier, with the A-arms and drive cups and the composite servo horn and spur gear, the truck is very durable for moderate to heavy high-speed bashing. I think where most people are falling into a self-fulfilling prophecy and completely shattering arms or other of the high flex components is they tend to want to test the threshold of the supposedly weak components, specifically the arms and the drive cups. And people tend to be exceptionally rough. I know every RC gets thrashed, but seems like folks make it a mission to annihilate the kaiju. If you don't believe me, check out this clip.
Oh no!
And this clip.
Oh, you broke something.
And this clip.
Ah!
This whole video.
And it's broke.
This landing.
Oh, was that a triple?
And this just for good measure.
Damn. Look at that shit.
I think for most folks, once the widely accepted known problem parts are addressed, this truck is plenty durable for a majority of the trials it's tested on. And just a bit of sage wisdom. Diamonds are made under pressure. Plastic just breaks. In terms of design, there's some pretty interesting X-Max-esque things I see going on here. Specifically, the tub, the reinforcement of the tub to the shock tower. Some of the other trucks that this thing draws comparison to definitely don't have that. The front has a steering block and rear hub, extendable battery tray. I already mentioned the tub style chassis with the reinforcement from the tub to the shock tower. The 2100 kV motor, 150 amp ESC hobby wing package. Space-wise, it's a little bit cramped, and without some modifications or 3D printed component support, you're pretty much limited to a 4268 motor and maybe a max 8-ish ESC. This unit isn't necessarily aftermarket cooling fan friendly, especially one with an aluminum heatsink. Most require some kind of modification. And even though I was able to get this one to fit, I'm still going to work on my own mount that should help get one of those like server fan retrofits to kind of work better. There's a tendency to call this a rival MT10 Helion Avenge clone. But once you look closer, their similarities lie in that they're both trucks and have matching bumpers. The Kaiju uses some parts for inspiration for sure. However, the dimensions on the Kaiju are larger all around, which means at the very least there was some redesign on the components to make them scale to a larger truck, They also appear to be better quality composite and better quality plastics. The most notable differences that I can see are the wheelie bar design and the robustness of the chassis bracing from the tub to the shock towers. I also understand the arms, the upper arms are different, the suspension is different, the drivetrain is definitely different. So, even though the comparisons are made, the differences definitely outweigh the similarities. This is a wholly different truck. In terms of durability and design, I give the Redcat Kaiju a score of 3. The next category is speed. The truck's sweet spot is probably 4S. 6S makes this thing an unruly beast that's incapable of making a full power speed pass. I wasn't able to give it more than 75 to 80% throttle before I was on the roof or out of runway. The theoretical limit is around 60 miles an hour on 6S, but it takes tinkering to reach there. You need some suspension tweaks and stuff. The bottom line, this is a really fast truck for bashing on-road, off-road, or otherwise. My GPS results were on 4S, 43 to 45 miles an hour using a Z ADC 6200 milliamp hour battery. On 6S, I was able to get to 52, 53 miles an hour repeatably with a Z ADC 5200 milliamp hour battery. Bottom line, this is a fast truck. For the Redcat Kaiju, in the category of speed, the score is 3. The next category is fun. It wheelies, it jumps, it tumbles, it cartwheels, it backflips, it slides. It's like an RC action car chase. It's a furious little beast that's itching to carve up pavement, dirt, grass, any surface you throw at it, even on 4S. You toss in a 6S pack and it becomes an uncontrollable torrent of dirt and debris. That being said, it's really manageable. The steering control is a high point. It's very nimble for a monster truck. It has really tight turns in like mid-speed direction changes. After a couple shock position tweaks, I had the Kaiju doing fairly high-speed direction changes without doing any rollovers or velocity roll or any of that stuff. The acceleration on 4S is more than enough to keep a grin on your face while you're turning around and getting back up to speed. In terms of jumps, it took me a little while to get used to the balance of it while in small to medium-sized jumps, but once I realized how easy it was to control by not controlling it, I had a lot more success with medium to large jumps. It really takes just a little bit of throttle control to move the front end up or down depending on the ramp, but it's really very smooth. And the only gripe that I have is it tends to be a little bouncy, especially when you land on all 4 wheels. It tends to want to bounce back up. But you can tune that out, not just with the shock positions, but also with the shock weights. Basically, I don't know if there's an RC fan that wouldn't have fun with this rig. It was my favorite in my RC stable until very recently when another top tier contender, which is also my next 100 days vehicle, stole that crown. In terms of fun, I gave the Redcat Kaiju a score of 3. The next category is maintenance and ease of work. One of the main features of the Kaiju is the center diff. Unfortunately, it's also a bit of a con in terms of maintenance. It's not necessarily difficult to work on, but it can be rather tedious and frustrating. There's something like 18 screws required to be removed for access to the center diff. It's also a bit of a pain splitting the chassis at the shock towers, with the wires for the lights still connected to the receiver. That being said, once you're working on the truck, it's not really that bad because you almost always need to take the skids off, which are a majority of those 18 screws. For example, the center diff axis is 18 screws, but the rear and center diff is 20. So it's the 18 plus 2 more. Similar to the front diff. Overall, it's a pain because most tasks require the removal of the skids, but once they're off, it's pretty simple and easy to get to everything else, with the caveat being the wires for the lights. They seem to always be in the way. Side note, if you're interested in the sway bars and the diff cup sleeves, you should probably do them at the same time. The sway bars make ease of access to the diff cups a little bit of a nightmare. I had a hell of a time. I wish I would have done them both at the same time. So if you're interested in both of them, get the sway bars and the diff cup sleeves and do them together. For ease of work and maintenance, I give the Redcat Kaiju a score of 2. The next category is looks, intangibles, and wildcards. So if something for like a scale truck, or a crawler, we're looking for like its accuracy, or if it's a ground vehicle for speed, we're looking, like how does it handle aerodynamics and stuff like that. But since we're talking about gritty old monster trucks, this one's really more about looks and some of the visceral things about it. In my opinion, this thing is a snarling little beast. It sounds amazing, especially with the metal spur gear and the huge tires sound killer on pavement. The front and rear lights look killer. The body style is unique. The paint and the graphics are amazing. And they show a level of detail that isn't really common when you're looking at the design of RC bodies. Arma comes close. Team Corrali comes a little closer, but if you're really looking at the Kaiju, you can start to see that they definitely had a vision, and for better or worse, they executed it. I gave the Redcat Kaiju a score of 3 for looks, intangibles, and wildcards. In conclusion, I feel like the Redcat Kaiju is the perfect step-up vehicle, like someone who had a voltage and is ready to step up to something larger, more powerful. It's a perfect second vehicle. It's for the person who has picked up a voltage and ran it on 2S and has a couple of 2S packs that they can throw in here to run it on 4S, which I think is the sweet spot. The Kaiju is right in the middle of the price to performance continuum. It's not an extremely high-end shelf queen, and it's definitely not a super budget destroy and throw away piece of junk from overseas. It's quirky, sure, but that's really part of its charm. It has something for everyone and truly deserves a look from anyone willing to part with $400 on a toy truck whose sole purpose is to be thrown from dirt piles at high rates of speed until total destruction occurs or the battery is depleted. In the end, it's a really tough package to beat, and I don't think anyone would regret purchasing it. And if you're interested, and I've swayed you to the red side, check the links down below if you want to pick up one of these blue beasts for yourself. That concludes my Redcat Kaiju 100 Days. Thanks for watching.